Understanding the Beast of Revelation, Chapter 17. Part 2. What is the identity of the seven mountains? What is their relationship to the harlot who sits upon them? We are continuing to examine the Beast of Revelation 17, and in part 1 of this teaching, explored what Scripture says about the identities of the 10 horns and the harlot. If you didn't see that key teaching, please view it in the photos or reels section of this page. Understanding what Scripture says about these subjects is absolutely vital to understanding the mountains. Revelation 17:9. A. This calls for a mind having wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. As I've often stated, Scripture uses imagery in a consistent way, so there's no confusion about God's message. But when learning to understand His words, we must permit Him to speak for Himself. This is why a comprehensive understanding of the entirety of Scripture is vital to correctly interpreting Revelation. To put it bluntly, the reason why so many people today misunderstand Revelation and end up believing or teaching error is because they lack knowledge of the Old Testament. Jews merely call it the Hebrew Bible, and I think believers today should also. Nothing in there is old or of no use, 2 Timothy 3:16. We saw proof of this in the previous teaching, and we'll continue to see it in this one. So what does Scripture tell us about the imagery of a mountain? Uniformly, mountains and hills represent nations, large or small. Here are a few examples. 1. At Ezekiel 38:2, God speaks of Gog, which means mountain. The assumption by many is that Gog is referring only to a person, but in actuality, the reference is to both the leader of that nation and to his people, as leaders in Scripture always typify their subjects. A further analysis of this is off topic, but this is an important concept, as we'll see in part 3. 2. Isaiah 2:2. It will come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the house of the Lord will stand firm as head of the mountains, and will be exalted above the hills, so all nations will flow to it. Here we see the typical imagery whenever God speaks of His kingdom, the imagery of a mountain, and in this case, a kingdom that is more exalted than any other kingdom on earth. 3. Isaiah 11:9. They will not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Here we see explicitly that God's holy mountain will one day cover the entire earth. This obviously isn't referring to an actual mountain, but imagery pointing to a spiritual concept. See also Isaiah 25:6-8, where we see the same imagery, that His mountain will cover the entire earth and all nations. 4. Jeremiah 3:6. Then the Lord said to me in the days of King Josiah, have you seen what backsliding Israel did? She went up on every high mountain and under every green tree, and there she committed adultery. This imagery is very important, folks. Here we see the harlot going to the nations and committing adultery, that is, spiritual fornication. This verse and others like it throughout the prophets, for example, Hosea 4:13, is quite important, as we'll see shortly. 5. Jeremiah 3:23. Surely help from the hills is a delusion, the commotion of the mountains. Surely in the Lord your God is the salvation of Israel. Here God is telling the Israelites that their reliance upon the nations to protect them is futile, in that He is their only hope. See Hosea 10:8 also, which incidentally is the key to understanding Revelation 6:15-16. 6. Daniel 2:35. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from summer threshing floors that the wind blows away. Not a trace of them could be found. Then the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. 44. Now in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will this kingdom be left to another people. It will crush and bring to an end all of these kingdoms, but it will endure forever. This reference is pretty straightforward and requires no explanation. There are many more in Scripture, and if this is a subject you haven't explored before, I encourage you to do so because it's key to understanding the mountains of Revelation 17. This meaning is by no means my invention, nor am I claiming special revelation or insight. It's a rather common interpretation both within Rabbinic Judaism as well as most Christian denominations. So the question then becomes, what are the identities of the 7 heads of the beast, which the angel tells us at Revelation 17:9 are nations? Key concept. While answering this question, it's vital to understand that we're walking back in time, looking at what predates the horns. Just as natural horns spring from an animal's head, so too do the mountains or nations of the beast precede the formation of the horns. Just as Psalm 83 names the 10 horns of the beast, the 7 heads which existed before the horns were formed are also named. Deuteronomy 7:1. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess and drives out many nations before you, the Hittite and the Girgashite and the Amorite, the Canaanite and the Perizzite, the Hivite and the Jebusite, 7 nations more numerous and mightier than you. 2, when the Lord your God gives them over to you and you strike them down, then you are to utterly destroy them. You are to make no covenant with them and show no mercy to them. 3, you are not to intermarry with them. You are not to give your daughter to his son or take his daughter for your son. 4, for he will turn your son away from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and he will swiftly destroy you. 5, instead, you are to deal with them like this: tear down their altars, smash their pillars, cut down their Asherah poles, and burn their carved images with fire. 6, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. From all the peoples on the face of the earth, the Lord your God has chosen you to be his treasured people. Now let's briefly consider each of these 7 heads and make note of where they were located prior to the formation of the horns. 1. The Hittites. We are told this at Joshua 1:3-4. Every place on which the sole of your foot treads, I am giving to you, as I spoke to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon to the great river, the Euphrates River, all the land of the Hittites, to the great sea toward the setting of the sun will be your territory. This tells us that the Hittites resided between Lebanon and the Euphrates River. This would be in the areas of modern Lebanon, the southernmost portion of Syria and most of Iraq. As I covered in part 1, modern Lebanon is 2 of the horns, Gebal and Tyre, and Iraq is one of the horns, Assyria. I also mentioned that it's possible that modern Syria, which arose from a portion of the Assyrian Empire that originated in modern Iraq, is part of the beast. This reference to the Hittites is one of the arguments in favor of it, but as I wrote, it's uncertain at this time. 2. The Girgashites. The origin of this group began with Noah's son Ham, who fathered Canaan. From Canaan came various groups including the Girgashites. Collectively, they were known as the Canaanites, because all these groups shared the same forefather. See the genealogy of Genesis chapter 10. However, there is evidence that after many conflicts with the people of Israel, the Girgashites migrated south and settled in northern Africa, particularly in the areas of Egypt and into Tunisia. While Egypt is already in a covenant relationship with Israel, it's probably prophetically significant that some in Tunisia want to join the Abraham Accords. Morocco, which is to Tunisia's west and was also the settling place of the Girgashites, has already joined the Accords. 3. The Amorites. These are a subgroup within the Canaanites, having descended from Canaan. The geographical distribution of the Amorites was vast. They resided within the entirety of the Levant, including all of what we call Israel today, Lebanon, Syria, and even into modern Iraq. 4. The Canaanites. The Canaanites inhabited the land of Canaan, otherwise known as the area of the Levant. They are the main progenitor of most, but not all, of the tribes inhabiting the entire Levant area. Refer to the genealogy of Genesis chapter 10. 5. The Perizzites. Genesis 13:7 tells us the Perizzites were living in the land promised to Abraham when he finally settled there. When his descendants arrived in the land following the Exodus, The Perizzites resided in the area given to Ephraim and in the hill country given to Judah. Following a long history of warfare with the Israelite people, many but not all scholars believe the Perizzites were absorbed into the Canaanite people. This seems to have been common, as the Philistine people were also absorbed into the Canaanites. I believe this view is most likely the correct one. Interestingly, two of the three areas where the Palestinian people have congregated are the West Bank, that is Ephraim, and the land around Jerusalem or Judea. The third area being Gaza, known today as the Gaza Strip. 6. The Hivites. These people were descended from Canaan and had several encampments within the Levant, but the largest was at the base of the mountain range known as Mount Hermon, the probable site of Yeshua's transfiguration. These mountains straddle the border of Lebanon and Syria. 7. The Jebusites. This tribe, which arose from the Canaanites, had Jebus as its capital, which is roughly what we know today as Jerusalem. Although there is some dispute as to Jebus's boundaries, perhaps being within the city of David. However, the Jebusites range all along the mountainous area of what became Israel. The Hebrew word for Jebus means trampled place. This is intriguing when considering passages such as Matthew 24, 24b, and Jeremiah 32, 31-32, both of which refer to Jerusalem. Now that we understand the identities of the heads or mountains, let's examine how the harlot sat down upon them. Judges 3:1. Now these are the nations that the Lord left to test all Israel who had not experienced any of the wars of Canaan. 2. It was only in order that the generations of the sons of Israel might learn from war, which they had not experienced before. 3. These nations included the 5 Philistine lords and all the Canaanites, Zidonians, and the Hivites living in the hill country of Lebanon from Mount Baal Hermon to the entrance of Hamath. 4. They were for testing Israel, to know whether they would obey the commandments of the Lord, which he had commanded their fathers by Moses' hand. 5. But the sons of Israel settled among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. 6. And took their daughters for themselves as wives, gave their own daughters to their sons, and worshipped their gods. 7. The sons of Israel did what was evil in the Lord's eyes, forgot the Lord their God, and worshipped the Baals and the Asherahs. 8. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. When the ancient Israelites occupied the land, did they do as God commanded and not have any association with them? Did they tear down all the altars? Did they destroy the pagan structures and idols? There were a number of attempts to do this under righteous rulers, but for the most part, the answer is no. And so the harlot committed harlotry on every mountain. Yes, they literally went up mountains and set up pagan altars, but they also went up to the nations and, in direct contradiction to the command of Deuteronomy 7, they committed spiritual adultery with them. This is what the passage from Judges is all about. It's worth noting that modern Israelis haven't eradicated the paganism among them either. If all Israel were righteous and truly zealous for God, there would be no mosques in the land, nor would there be Roman Catholic churches. There also wouldn't be the witchcraft and mysticism of Kabbalah, which originated in Babylon, or the many harlotries inherent within Haredi Judaism and much of the Orthodoxy. Israel is even host to Jewishes, which melds Judaism with Western-style occultism. And also, many modern Israelis consider themselves merely spiritual, a description which typically encompasses elements of Eastern mysticism and Western mythology, while others are atheists. My point is that these pagan practices are tolerated and, in the case of Haredi Judaism in particular, encouraged. Key point. And so the harlot sat down upon the mountains in ancient times. She sat down upon them after the return from Babylon, and she is sitting there once again. Yet even now God has a remnant, not only the Messianic Jews who already genuinely believe, but also those whom he will call during the tribulation, which is what Revelation chapter 12 is all about. Flee from anyone who teaches that the woman of Revelation 12 is the church. Likewise, people who erroneously claim that the 7 mountains are the ones around Rome or any other place are not basing their arguments on God's words, but rather upon their own imaginations. If any of you have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments section below. And as always, be alert.